Hello there. Welcome to my channel. It was just another sleepless night. The kind where your mind refuses to rest, wandering into dark corners you'd rather avoid. The city outside was quiet, unnervingly quiet. I leaned back in my chair and listened, expecting the usual hum of traffic, the occasional siren in the distance, the familiar signs of life that usually filled the night. But there was nothing, just silence. My apartment felt heavier than usual. The walls seemed closer, the air thicker, and every little sound echoed in ways it never had before. A faint hum from the refrigerator sounded louder than it should. My own breathing felt too loud in my ears. And then there was the clock, sitting high on the wall. Its hands moved steadily. Its tick carried through the still air like a hammer striking stone. I glanced at it once, then twice, watching the minutes crawl. 2:59, and then, with a sharp click, 3 a.m., the so-called witching hour. A shiver traced its way down my spine. Maybe it was just the lack of sleep, I told myself. Maybe my mind was exaggerating the quiet, turning the silence into something sinister. But even then, a small, unwelcome thought gnawed at me. What if the silence wasn't empty at all? What if it was waiting for something, or someone? I tried to shake it off, forcing myself into small, familiar routines. I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. The liquid rippled softly under the dim glow of the overhead light. I took a sip, hoping the coolness would ground me. But it didn't. Something felt off. I couldn't place it at first, but my body knew before my mind could. The stillness wasn't normal. The silence wasn't comforting. It pressed down on me, smothering like an invisible weight. The clock ticked again, louder, sharper. Each second rang in my skull, echoing through the apartment as though I were sitting inside a giant hollow shell. I placed the glass down on the counter, and even that small sound seemed to shatter the air. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at the empty room around me. The kitchen looked normal, the hallway dim but familiar, and yet I felt watched, not by someone I could see, but by something hiding just out of sight. The apartment no longer felt like mine. It felt like a stage, and I was standing under a spotlight, waiting for the curtain to rise. My pulse quickened, and still, the only answer came in the relentless pounding rhythm of the clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Then came the flicker. A faint flash in the hallway, the light struggling to stay alive against the pressing darkness. I froze, staring at the bulb as it dimmed, brightened, and dimmed again. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, stretching longer than they should have. I told myself it was nothing, just faulty wiring, just an old light. But my gut twisted as though it knew better. The curtains by the window moved slightly. A slow ripple, as if a breeze had passed through. But the windows were shut tight. I checked them twice before bed. The air in the apartment felt heavier, thicker, almost like it had a pulse of its own. My ears strained to pick up any sound, but all I could hear was the faint buzzing of the light and the pounding of my own heartbeat. My throat went dry as the silence pressed harder. A feeling spread through me, one I couldn't shake. The air itself was alive. It wasn't just filling the room. It was watching me. It was pressing against me. It wanted me to notice it. I turned toward the window, my chest tight with dread. The glass reflected the faint glow of the room, and for a moment, I saw it. A figure, standing still, just behind me, watching. My breath caught in my throat. My body stiffened, too afraid to move, too afraid to turn fully and face what might be there. I blinked, and it was gone. Nothing but my own pale reflection staring back at me. But the terror didn't leave. It deepened. My chest tightened until it felt like a vice was closing around it. The silence no longer sounded like silence. It carried weight, whispers hidden just beneath the surface. The hum of the appliances, the tick of the clock, even the creak of the floor beneath my feet all blended into something that wasn't random anymore. It felt intentional, deliberate. The sound of a presence I couldn't see. My skin prickled as if invisible eyes were crawling across my back. I wasn't alone. I knew it. I could feel it. Every instinct screamed at me. There was something in the apartment with me. Something waiting. Something patient. The old radio on the shelf hissed suddenly. A sharp burst of static that shattered the silence. My head snapped toward it, even though I hadn't touched it in months. The dial flickered faintly, the red needle glowing as if it had just come alive. At first, it was only noise, a meaningless hum beneath the crackling. But then, buried in the static, I heard them. Voices. Faint, almost whispers, like someone standing in the next room, speaking through a wall. I strained to make sense of the words, but they slipped in and out, like a language I almost knew but couldn't grasp. The sound grew sharper, more insistent, the whispers pulling closer, weaving around me like invisible threads tightening around my skin. I stepped back, my pulse racing, as the glass of water on the table quivered. A ripple spread across its surface, trembling violently though the air was still. It was as if something had brushed past it, unseen but undeniable. My hands shook, and I felt the air thicken around me. My body told me to run, but my legs were heavy, rooted in place. The voices from the radio rose again, circling, pressing closer, until I could swear they weren't in the machine anymore. They were in the room with me. I forced myself toward the hallway, every step weighed down by dread. The air grew colder as I neared the end, the silence pierced only by the steady thud of my heartbeat in my ears. The door stood half open, waiting, as if inviting me inside. I hesitated, my hand twitching by my side, torn between pushing it shut or pulling it wide open. And then I saw it. A figure. Tall, motionless, lurking in the dim shadows at the far end of the hall. Its shape was faint, but its presence was unmistakable. My heart stopped, a cold surge of terror flooding through my body, pinning me in place. Its head tilted slightly, as though it knew I was staring back. My mouth went dry, my breath caught in my throat, and the world narrowed to that one silhouette standing silently in the dark. I blinked, hard, willing it to vanish. And when my eyes opened again, it was gone. Nothing but the empty hallway stretching endlessly before me. But the terror didn't leave. It only deepened, because something in me knew the truth. Just because I couldn't see it anymore didn't mean it wasn't still there. Watching, waiting. The clock was no longer steady. It wasn't ticking like a normal clock anymore. It was racing, crashing into my skull with each strike, pounding like a war drum that only I could hear. Tick, tick, tick. Each second felt like an eternity, but at the same time they blurred together into chaos. My hands clutched the edges of the table as if holding on would stop the sound, but it didn't. My body trembled uncontrollably. My breath came short, uneven gasps, the air suddenly too heavy, too thick to fill my lungs. Then the lights, one by one, they began to flicker, dimming, struggling, failing. Each bulb died slowly, throwing the room deeper into shadow, until there was almost nothing left, just faint outlines, fragments of shapes lurking in the dark. The silence between the flickers was worse than the light itself, because in that silence, I could hear movement, not mine, not human, the kind of sound you can't mistake, no matter how much you wish it was just in your head. I wasn't alone anymore. Something was in the room with me, watching, moving closer, waiting for me to break. By then, the darkness had swallowed almost everything. I couldn't see the walls, the ceiling, the floor. I couldn't even see my own hands trembling in front of me. But I could hear. God, I could hear. Whispers slithering through the walls like insects crawling under the skin of the house. They rose and fell, impossible to understand. Yet I knew they weren't meant for anyone else. They were meant for me. Then the footsteps began, soft at first, slow, deliberate, pacing in the empty rooms I knew were locked. They moved from one corner to the next, circling, creeping closer. Every creak of the floorboards was a nail driven into my mind. My body screamed at me to run, to escape, but my legs were weak, frozen, unwilling to obey. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a countdown I couldn't stop. I wasn't alone. I was never alone. And in that moment, I knew that whatever had been watching me, whatever had been waiting, had finally decided to reveal itself. And then, silence. Just like that, everything stopped. The whispers faded. The footsteps vanished. The ticking that had consumed me was gone. Darkness swallowed everything whole, erasing the apartment, erasing the world. I stood frozen in the void, unable to tell if my eyes were even open anymore. I tried to move, but my body no longer felt real, as if I had been swallowed by the shadows themselves. My chest rose once, twice, struggling for air, and then even my breath seemed to fade into the nothingness. And in that emptiness, I understood. The silence hadn't been absence at all. It had been presence. It had been waiting for me, drawing me in, surrounding me until there was no separation between it and me. And in that moment, I realized the truth, the one truth I had never wanted to face. Are you really ever alone?